The storm that night felt alive, as if the sky itself was angry and restless. Rain slammed against the windshield in heavy sheets, blurring the road ahead into a trembling river of light and shadow. Mark Holloway drove with both hands clenched tight around the steering wheel, his knuckles pale from exhaustion and strain. It had been another brutal shift at the factory, 12 hours of noise, sweat, and aching muscles, but his mind was fixed on one thing only: getting home to his son. 7-year-old Noah would already be asleep by now, curled beneath his blanket, trusting that his father would always come back. That promise was what kept Mark awake on nights like this. The wipers fought a losing battle against the rain as thunder cracked overhead, shaking the old car like a warning. The road was nearly empty, stretching long and dark through fields swallowed by night. Then, in a sudden flash of lightning, Mark saw movement near the roadside. A shape, a person, someone staggering before collapsing hard onto the wet asphalt. His heart slammed into his chest. Instinct overruled reason. He slammed the brakes, tires screeching as the car skidded slightly before stopping. Without hesitation, Mark threw the door open and stepped into the storm. Rain soaked him instantly, cold and sharp, cutting through his jacket as he ran toward the fallen figure. When he reached her, his breath caught. The woman was young, her hair plastered to her face, her dress torn and clinging to her body. Her skin was pale, lips trembling, hands shaking as they pressed desperately against her swollen belly. She was pregnant, and there was blood. Fear surged through Mark like electricity. He knelt beside her, calling out, but her voice was barely audible beneath the roar of rain. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, filled with terror and pain. "Please," she whispered weakly, her fingers clutching his sleeve, "don't take me to the hospital." The words made no sense, but before he could ask why, her head fell back and her grip loosened. Panic surged. There was no time to think. Mark lifted her carefully, feeling how light she was, how fragile. Each step back to the car felt heavier, the rain pounding harder as if urging him to hurry. Through the fogged window, he saw Noah sitting in the back seat, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Mark opened the door and gently laid the woman across the seat, covering her with his jacket, speaking softly, though his own voice shook. "It's okay. You're safe now." He closed the door and slid behind the wheel, hands trembling as he started the engine. The storm howled around them as he drove, fear gnawing at him with every mile. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know where she came from. But he knew one thing. Leaving her there would have haunted him forever. The drive felt endless, every second stretching into agony as Mark pushed the car faster through the rain-soaked streets. The woman stirred faintly in the back seat, her breath shallow, her face contorted with pain. Noah leaned forward slightly, watching silently, clutching his seatbelt with small hands. "Dad, is she going to be okay?" he asked in a soft, uncertain voice. Mark swallowed hard, forcing calm into his tone. "She will be," he said, though doubt clawed at his chest. Headlights flashed by as another car passed, and for just a moment, its light illuminated the woman's face clearly. Mark's heart stopped. The recognition hit him like a physical blow. He knew that face. Every memory he had buried surged to the surface all at once. Her name was Elena, the woman who had once been his entire world. The woman who disappeared without explanation 8 years ago, leaving him with heartbreak, unanswered questions, and a life that had fallen apart before slowly rebuilding itself. His hand shook on the wheel. He almost missed the turn to the hospital. His mind spiraled as emotions collided. Shock, anger, disbelief, and a pain he thought he had long outgrown. Why was she here? Why now? And why was she pregnant? He forced himself to focus as the hospital lights finally came into view. Nurses rushed out the moment he skidded to a stop, pulling Elena onto a stretcher as Mark stood frozen in the rain, soaked and shaking. Her eyes opened briefly as they wheeled her away, lips moving as if she were trying to say something to him alone. Then she was gone. Inside the hospital, time lost all meaning. Noah fell asleep on a chair beside him, exhausted tears drying on his cheeks. Mark stared at the floor, memories replaying endlessly. Elena's laughter, the plans they made, the night she said goodbye without warning. Hours later, a doctor approached, his expression serious but relieved. "She's stable," he said. "You got her here just in time." Mark exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Then the doctor hesitated. "She's been asking for you, and there's something you need to know." Mark followed him down the corridor, his legs weak. When he entered the room, Elena looked smaller somehow, fragile beneath the white sheets. Her eyes filled with tears the moment she saw him. Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of pain. Finally, she spoke. "I never wanted to leave you," she whispered. Her voice cracked as she confessed the truth she had carried alone for years. She had been pregnant when she disappeared. Her family had forced her into another life, another marriage, threatening to destroy everything if she stayed. She believed leaving was the only way to protect him and the child. Mark felt the world tilt as she revealed the truth. The child she carried then was his. And the child sitting outside, asleep in a chair, was living proof of everything they had lost. Mark could barely breathe as the weight of Elena's words settled over him. Years of anger melted into confusion, grief, and something far more dangerous, understanding. He stepped back, gripping the chair for support, his mind replaying every sleepless night, every moment he had wondered why life had taken such a cruel turn. Outside the room, Noah stirred, rubbing his eyes as he peeked through the doorway. Elena saw him, her breath catching painfully in her throat. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the truth she had long feared and hoped for all at once. That's him," she whispered. Mark nodded slowly. No words were needed. The child she had loved from a distance was standing right there. Alive, safe, loved. Elena broke down, sobbing with a grief that had waited years to escape. Mark sat beside her, torn between resentment and compassion. For so long, he had believed forgiveness meant weakness. But sitting there, seeing her broken by regret, he understood that forgiveness was strength, the strength to let go of the pain that chained him to the past. That night, as Elena slept, Mark watched the rain slide down the hospital window. He thought of the years he spent building walls around his heart, teaching himself not to hope. He thought of Noah, the sacrifices, the loneliness, the quiet strength it took to raise a child alone. And he thought of Elena, the woman who made a terrible choice out of fear, not betrayal. Morning came quietly. Elena woke to find Noah sitting beside her bed, holding a small cup of juice with both hands. "Dad said you need this," he said shyly. Her heart shattered and healed all at once. When Mark returned, Elena finally found the courage to speak. "I didn't deserve your help," she said softly. Mark shook his head. "You didn't need to deserve it. You just needed it." The simplicity of his words undid her completely. She cried into his arms, not from pain, but relief. For the first time in years, she wasn't running anymore. The days that followed were slow but meaningful. They talked about the past, about Noah, about fear and mistakes and the weight of silence. Not everything could be fixed, but something new began to grow. Trust, understanding, hope. On the day Elena was discharged, rain returned once more, gentle this time, washing the city clean. They stood outside the hospital together, Mark holding Noah's hand, Elena watching them with quiet tears. For the first time in years, Mark felt peace. Some storms don't come to destroy. They come to reveal the truth and clear the way forward.